All right, so we shouldn't have ever been there in the first place, you know? I remember when the United States first invaded Afghanistan. I believe I was a freshman in high school. Um, yeah, it's hard to believe it's been so long. So a few things here. First, we have to dispel this myth that the United States as some kind of savior nation, where other countries, you know, where some people in other countries, want the United States to become involved in their affairs because yeah, they think they're the saviors. I mean, that's obviously very naive and silly. But yeah, let's just get that out of the way. That's obviously, a myth. That's what it is. Um, and also just in principle, you shouldn't look at some savior nation to come fix your own problems. You got to do that yourself. Then another thing is this myth amongst Americans is that us like our involvement in Afghanistan makes us safe, which is clearly not true because our involvement in Afghanistan is what caused 9/11 to happen, right? So yeah, the fact that the idea that um, staying there will make us safer just is completely illogical. 9/11 obviously was blowback for the United States involvement in Afghanistan and the Middle East in general. But that's a kind of a different, or that's a huge topic. I don't want to get into that right now, but I just want to say, so yeah, after 9/11, what the United States should have done was just, start a uh, international investigation on the people who were the people behind it and try to apprehend them through more through more covert means. That would have worked better, definitely. Because the thing is, if you really wanted to catch the people behind 9/11 and put them to justice, then that's the path that's the most logical way to go about it, right? Because if you do a whole ground invasion, obviously it's you're gonna like the people who the people who were behind it are obviously going to go through more they're going to go through more lengths to make sure they're not apprehendable, that they're not they're going to go further underground, because it's obvious. It's like if the police are investigating, like if the FBI is investigating some criminal somewhere in a particular city, they're going to do covert action to apprehend this criminal. They're going to invade the whole city because that obviously wouldn't make sense because then the criminal would just skip town. And as far like in Afghanistan, I mean, as far as Osama bin Laden, he was in Pakistan, so he wasn't even in Afghanistan. Um, and he wouldn't, if he had any sense, he wouldn't be there when there's a ground invasion. So yeah, so that's one thing. That's how the United States should have gone about it. And of course, when the United States did invade, they knew that they were putting thousands of Afghans at risk for starvation with their bombing. And of course, at least there's tens of thousands at least of civilians that have been killed because of this war. And of course, U.S. service members as well. And just the crazy amount of money that went into this war for nothing. You got um, was it $9 billion to train the Afghan army, and they folded. Was there 300,000 of them, and they folded in just in a week to maybe 70,000 Taliban. So just a horrible investment for one. So yeah, I mean, I'm clearly no fan of the Taliban, but they were gonna take over. If the United States left Afghanistan in 20 years from now, they would have taken over. It was just gonna happen either way, you know. And all the United States was doing there was supporting a government that has little public support, you know. Um, Probably corrupt themselves. I wouldn't be surprised if they were, knee deep in the poppy trade, you know. And then obviously the United States was supporting these warlords who were even worse than the Taliban. You know, the stories came out that these warlords had child sex slaves, and these U.S. servicemen were dishonorably discharged for blowing the whistle on that. So it kind of reminds me of our so basically, and then by the U.S. supporting this unpopular government, crony government, and brutal warlords that are worse than the Taliban, basically that just helped create more support for the Taliban amongst the Afghan people. So they made the Taliban more popular by their presence there and their supporting of those groups. It's like back in the 80s, Reagan was the faction in Afghanistan that Reagan was supporting was so extreme that the people in Kabul welcomed the Taliban when the Taliban took over. They welcomed them. So we've have a history there of just supporting people even worse than the Taliban. So yeah, I'm glad we got out. I'm not surprised the Taliban took over. Yeah, we should have invested that money in more constructive things. You know, that's the problem when all you have is a hammer. Everything looks like a nail, and in the end, you just create blowback for yourself. So, if anything, the United States venture in Afghanistan has made us even less safe. Um, so far, the Taliban, as they're advancing in Kabul, they're offering people of the government amnesty. So as far as I know, there hasn't been any. So far, it doesn't seem like they're massacring the members of the former government. But yeah, that's neither here nor there. But yeah, we have to let Afghanistan work this out. I don't support the Taliban, nor do I support the puppet crony government we installed there, nor the warlords who are even worse than the Taliban. So yeah, this should have happened a long time ago. The United States had no business being in there in the first place, and so yeah. Probably the best thing Biden has done so far, or one of the best things. I'm not a big fan of Biden, by the way, but got to give credit where it's due. So I just hope Iraq is next.